Sorry, I saw your little note. To see to see those agreements we have, and once we see them, it makes things more understandable. It shifts our perceptions, not only of ourselves, but of the other person that we're working with or that have harmed us in some way or our woundings. And I'm not sure, by show of hands, have any of you ever heard of this modality before? Okay, we have a couple people. Okay. Um, so as Angela said, I was actually teaching with my mentors this weekend in their training program. And so it's great. I'm still expanded and in that field. And I think one of the things that I really want to stress is that this is a modality that allows you to go past personalities. It allows you to go to the sacred space of healing past what you've known your mother or your father to have been with you in personality form, and to transcend your personality as well, to be able to look and understand, and to actually do the work and stand in front of that person that maybe in, for lack of a better description, real life, you're unable to stand in front of because, or have a conversation with because they aren't safe. They aren't safe. So this isn't a modality that says, oh, we're going to do this constellation, then you got to go have a chat with your someone who's harmed you extremely. So that's not what this is about. This is actually a process that allows you to stand across from that person or pieces of yourself, even anything that has a system, and to begin to heal that and to begin to do that in a safe, extremely sacred, soulful, unconscious, conscious diving way. Um, and so this work has now come into the United States much better. My mentors trained with the man who originally developed this, and he developed this. He was a priest at one point, and then he left after he went on a mission to Africa, and when he got there, he realized that his mission was not to convert them to anything. He really realized so much that he left the priesthood right after and started to study with Virginia Satir and Moreno and those types of people, Gestalt, all of that. And so what he took from those tribes was how deeply, deeply connected and attached to our ancestors we are, even though we consciously don't know it necessarily, right? So this is a modality that allows us to go into that consciousness, into those shadow pieces, into those pieces we don't realize are there, are pieces of oppressiveness and being oppressed against, our 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 system of family that goes back generation through epigenetics, through intergenerational trauma. You know, there's a lot of studies out there now that show us that intergenerationally, from our in our DNA, trauma can be passed down from generation to generation. And out of love and loyalty to our family, we kind of stay in it until we know better, until we know. And so it gives us a way to have that knowing and to shift our perspectives, to grow our compassion, to grow our understanding, um, to just grow our relationships and our connection, not only with each other, but ourselves. And so it's a, I actually, you know, when I did my dissertation, I had to stay an extra year because I had started one, had the IRB all set, and this modality was like, nah, I need a voice. And so it affected my life personally so much that I switched and did that, much to my husband's dismay. But it is something that I stand on. It's something that's a foundation now to when working with clients, because it works with the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual all in one swoop. And so not you don't necessarily have to do a constellation with someone. Let's say someone, I heard you talk about borderline personality and someone who's got experienced extreme complex trauma, those kinds of things. It's not that you can't do a constellation with them. It's just you have to be more patient, like when you're working with them anyway. But one thing that has helped me immensely is that through the foundations of constellations, I'm able to still have that conversation with them. I'm able to look at the patterns. I'm able to look at where where in their family things have happened. Oftentimes, borderline and some other personality disorders in this modality comes from a split. You know, we hear about splits. We're taught about splits in this work. And this is really a way to bring the split back together at a level that's past the intellectual. Because how many times do we hear a client say, well, intellectually, I totally know all this. And it's like, great. I mean, I've been there. It's like, yep, I get it. I don't know what to do, right? So we have our big, I don't know what to do, which is our resistance to try and dive a little deeper. So this modality allows us to do that. It allows us to do that whether we set up figurines or are in a workshop or a seminar together. It allows us to inform our clients that this is, yes, this is what happened. That's the first step, right? So with any people that have extreme trauma backgrounds or borderline personality, even narcissism, even all those different things, what I found to be most important, aside from well, no, even the narcissism, because under narcissism is an extreme insecurity. So what I have found with these people that have been most harmed, most harmed, complex, is that we build their agency first. And you can use constellations to build that agency because we don't want to throw someone into a constellation that's a disorganized attachment or even an avoidant attachment, right? And so we don't throw them in. And but what I do when I work, especially, is talk about them, talk about gaining back what they feel may have been taken, putting the balance back in, giving them resolve, giving them power, empowering them. It's one of the modalities that empowers people because as a facilitator, I'm here to guide, to suggest saying a couple things, but it is the person's full choice to move forward and take that step closer. And so by building agency first in those people that have had the most challenges or the biggest ones in their lives is important. Because if I just threw someone in to stand across from their father that has been abusive in some way, there's going to be all kinds of emotions. There's going to be a fallback even into that child, that little girl, right? Or that little boy, because that's kind of what falls into us when we are experiencing it. Um, does that make sense so far? I'm kind of just going off the cuff here. So if there's like anything specific, Angela, let me know.
Yeah, if you could just articulate in a very basic way kind of what constellations is, because I see a
Oh,
question
yeah.
in there and only two people know about it. And I remember the same thing when you told me about it. I was like, what? What is that? And then
I
you're
get-
like telling me, I'm like, whoa, that's cool.
yeah. So, yes, thank you. I get really excited and then I just keep talking. So please, so, if I'm going too fast or you're like, what are you talking about? Just go ahead and ask me a question or ask me to slow down too. Um, so family constellations or systemic constellations is a way to look at your family pattern outside of yourself. It's a way to look at those patterns that have developed in us through our experiences with our family, through our experiences in other relationships, and in a safe and sacred way. And how this is done is there's three basic ways. So the first way is within a group, even online, like we have here, where you have representations for the people or the things that will be in the constellation. So the word constellation is used because when it was translated in German, from German, the word is constellation, but in German, it just means grouping. So every family is a grouping, every system is a grouping. And so when you start in a group, you'll have representations. So if I was doing a constellation with my mother, I would ask Angela, would you please represent my mother? Now Angela could say yes or no. And either way, it's okay. And one thing I really want to stress that has been my experience in all the times I've participated, I've facilitated, is that there is no moral judgment in these rooms. This is how we can go so deep. This is how we can look at those things in our family that might bring shame, but it also is how we stop the cycle, how we stop that stream of consciousness. And so as we have our representatives set up, I invite those people who are representing the different parts or different people to forget who they are. So I would say, I am no longer Michaelene. I am whoever's name, and I'm representing so-and-so's brother, and in service to them and their families, and service to myself and my family. And so it goes deep for not only the person who is doing the constellation, but the people who are in the room, whether representing or witnessing. And I know I'm giving you the big, like, this is so like esoteric and energetic, but I'll get to the process in one moment. And so after the representatives are chosen, the client or the seeker goes behind each one and sets them up where they feel is right. So it's all on intuition and allowing your unconscious to kind of come out and place these things. So many times people get done placing it and going, oh, wow, okay, that's what is. What we tell ourselves and our stories, they matter. But in this work, it really shows us what is. Again, without judgment, just what is. And so as the constellation would go, I would check in with the representatives and say, you know, Angela, the representative for so-and-so's mother, you know, what's here for you? And inevitably, I am talking 99.9% of the time, the person will be straight on for the client. The representatives can feel physical symptoms of who they're representing. The representatives can feel the energetics and emotions of the person they're representing. So much so that when they check in, often what is heard from the client is, that's exactly what my mother would have said. And this was found in Virginia Satir's work of family sculpting and in psychodrama. It's the phenomenon that neither of them could explain how this happened and why this happened. Me, I have my own, I know why and how it happens. So, and it's part of trusting the process and trusting yourself. So once those, and you'll feel the energy of it. It's so energy based and soul based that you'll feel the energy of where to move, where you're drawn to. Some people will feel that the representatives they'll be shoved out of their chair to go in and represent in the constellation because there's something there for everybody, right? So as the constellation goes, we follow the energy of where the client needs to go next, where the client's pulled to, and you walk around. And I might invite you to say healing sentences. I might invite you to say resolution sentences or recovery sentences. And even just as simple as acknowledging, accepting, and agreeing. So I acknowledge you as my mother. It's not easy for everyone to do that. Just that pure acknowledgement might be the biggest step they've taken in years. And it's so important to honor that. And we usually start, a little farther apart. And generally the child goes to the parent. So then we take a step. And if that person can only take one step or can only say those words and that's it, then that's farther than they've been. And that's at a level that's beyond talk therapy, way beyond talk therapy, because it works on the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual level, all in one constellation. And so by the end of the constellation, my mentor likes to say, the end of the constellation is a prayer and is the beginning of healing. And so once you go through, and it's emotional, I'm not gonna lie, it's emotional. When I first started this, I was like, what do you mean I gotta cry? I'm gonna cry? Wait, what? So if it could break this shell open for me back then, it's pretty good for most everyone. And so at the end, we don't really share. We might invite the representatives to share, to say, what was that experience like for you? Did you get anything for yourself in representing that person? But we honor the client by not putting our own ideas onto it and saying, um, well, your grandmother said this to me, or this is what I saw in your constellation. We give the person at least 72 hours to let it integrate and let it sit, because it works at an energetic level. It changes your cells. It changes and goes through. So it's going to take at least 72 hours to let the snow globe you just shook up settle. So it's a very important part, the integration piece. Okay, I have a question. Can you explain who the representatives might be for a systemic constellation versus the family you already gave? Okay, so in a more systemic one, so let's say you want to look at a system at work, or you want to look at, you also can use representations for anything that has energy. So guess what? Everything has energy. Money, abuse, power, divorce, infidelity, terminated pregnancies, miscarriages, all those different things. So inside the system, it depends on what the system is doing. So if we go into an organization and we see, it's hard to tell an organization that, you know what, you all have family issues going on here. So let's do a constellation. And an organization will look at us and go, not quite sure. I think we're going to move on. So, so one of the important things is that we take the familial system, and essentially we all bring whatever we've experienced in our life to every single relationship, whether it's with an animated object or not, whether it's with your boss or the company itself. We look at those different systems and those different components of those systems. So if judgment or racism or any of those different things, bigotry, prejudice, joy, you can look at anything. And so then you would use those, and the person who is having the issue, or the company, and in the company it's a less direct way than in doing it in a workshop with people who want to do the family pieces, is that, you know, you look at those different parts of the system and they stand in front of them essentially and say, now, what is your relationship with this? How is this affecting you? Where else? And I've asked this, where else in your life do you find this happening? Because it does. And so to slowly bring an organization into that um, level of consciousness makes a huge impact. I just reposted an article I read about how how there's trauma in corporations. And it was a very well written article, very good. And it's like, yep, exactly. So it's similar. The players are just a little different, and how we do it, depending on the openness of the the company or the organization, um, is also depends on how we do things. Did I answer your question, Ashley? Okay, great. All right.
Sorry, you answered my question. I'm
Oh,
Meg. I
I'm
think
sorry.
Ashley still has a question.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Meg. Okay, sorry about that. I saw you shaking your head too. Um, thank you. Okay, so that's kind of it in a little bit of a nutshell. Any other questions?
Yes, I had a question about how is constellation therapy set up in the beginning? Like, is someone getting briefed on like, okay, for you to embody my mom, like these are the qualities that she has, or is it like just felt sense?
Mhm.
And then that's part one of the question. And then the second part of the question is is constellation therapy only happening in a group setting? And is it therapeutic for everyone, or is it like centered around one person's healing?
Okay, great questions. Great questions. Okay, I'll ask the second one because I remember that most, and I might have to say, what was the first one again? Because
Sure.
it was really good. So yes, it can be done one-on-one as well, with figurines, something to represent, you know, like a totem for those different things. Early in the days, I would use nail polish because I'm very visual, so I'm color oriented. Sometimes I would use rocks before I got my figurines and kind of made them my own. So you can use figurines. So I have figurines in my office, and usually too, I would start people with one-on-one, um, especially those who are like, I'm not getting in front of a group. This is, you know, until they really understand, because the group is the most intense. And then the other way we can work one-on-one is with footprints or pieces of paper on on the ground. And so that you can walk to that energy. You can even stand in the footprints of the other and get a healing and a download, for lack of a better word. And I remember your first question now. And no, there actually doesn't, I know, yay, there actually doesn't have to be any story told. There are things called blind constellations where if someone is super hesitant to share, we can set up people where only the client knows who is who. And it works all the same. It works all the same. And so we don't need a lot of the story. We really just ask in our initial interview, like if you sat down, if you were in a workshop with me and you sat down next to me in my chair, or next to me in the chair, um, I would ask you things like, so tell me what's here for you today. What would you like to work on? What is, you know, what is bugging you? What's been here for a long time? And then you would proceed to say, well, I really, you know, here's a bit of a story about my childhood and things that I've experienced with my mother, and I'd really like to be closer to her, or I'd really like to know another way to be in relationship. And then we take from there, I would ask, what was your mother's relationship like with her mother? Was there anyone in your family that was excluded, especially if you feel excluded or not attached to a parent or a sibling? Because in the generations, usually there is someone that has been excluded. And that means someone who has died early, died like if your mother passes away early, if her mother passed away early. So an early death, an exclusion of perhaps they were mentally, they had mental illness and they, back in the day, they were just shipped off and left. And so we bring those people back into the fold, literally, energetically, physically, all of it. And so then the family field is allowed to calm, and there's a different peace within the person and within the family field that ripples out. So the story is important to a certain point, and then it's not anymore, because we like to get wrapped up in our stories and stay there. It's a great defense mechanism, and it's one that when I was in talk therapy, I could do it with the best of them. And even if I gave a little, window crack open and the therapist didn't go there, I was like, all right, we can't do this anymore, which is how I found my mentor. But so talk therapy to me is a lot about the story over and over again, especially if it's geared, CBT and those other transpersonal and gestalt and all of the different modalities, I think go in that realm, go much deeper than any talk therapy could possibly go. And so when I found this modality, figured out I couldn't manipulate it like I had any other one in the past, I was like, okay, yeah, okay, this is for me. I've got to do it. I've got to learn more about it. And then it was, I really need to work with my clients in this way, because it is so safe and sacred, and because it is filled with grace and filled with, we take our time. We don't rush through anything. And, I have a very extensive questionnaire that all my clients have to answer. And sometimes it takes up to 2 hours to answer, but it is about all these things. And so that also it's filled with facts, even about your birth, even about, so it covers a lot. If you want to explore it, you can go on my website and under scheduling and find it. But it informs me so much as a therapist, that we don't have to sit in the story so much. They don't have to tell me for 2-3 weeks the history they've just told every other therapist they've had. Because at some point we become, yeah, I can tell the story all I want. And I'm numb to it now because I've told it so much that now it's here. Well, the thing that constellations do is like, okay, we're going to look at it from a different angle. We're going to look at it as a form of connection with yourself. That's why I say it's important to start with the agency. Sometimes I have a constellation or talk about them connecting with their inner child, connecting with their adolescent self, connecting with their self now, to see, because that's their soul speaking to their soul. And how often do we not engage with our higher self in meditation? Yep. But in therapy, and especially in traditional kind of talk therapy, it's not really happening. I've had so many clients come in and say, my gosh, I went in the last hour and 15 minutes, I went deeper than I have in 6 years with therapy. And so it's that deep, and it's that soul touching. And it is very difficult to describe without, sorry, I'm reading another question. Yeah, I'm just going to answer the question now because I lost my train of thought. Let's see. So do you find that trauma is often uncovered during the process and brought to a conscious level? Curious about how that is processed together in the group. So yes, a lot of the time people have an inkling. There's a reason they've come. They have an inkling of what they want to look at, and it's very nerve-wracking, as we all know. And some people come with the question, I think something has happened, at least maybe not to me, but to my mother or in the past, in back in generations. And yes, so it has, but it's come as a form of understanding as opposed to, when I work, re-traumatization. Be, because now that's answering, going into the next question as well. That is definitely a concern, absolutely, because that is the last thing we want to do as healers. That is why we take our time, and it's very important to build the empowerment and the agency, but taking our time, being able to feel into the client you're working with, meeting them where they are during the constellation, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's in a group. That is very, very important as a facilitator in the group. You can feel the energies that are happening. You can feel as a facilitator that the energies have shifted and there's different things that are coming to light. And it has been my experience that they only come to light when the client is ready. And so we don't delve into, okay, so it said in your questionnaire that you were abused and blah, blah, blah. So let's just go right there. That, yeah, exactly, Angela, exactly. That is not what happens. Yeah. So you spend time getting to know your client. You spend time in the workshop so that people can bond and connect. You know, it's all those traditional group things that y'all may have learned. You know, positive regard, no judgment, confidentiality, and the groups and the community that I've been able to cultivate over the last 10 years is just that. And my last group in January, I was so grateful just to see the community. We eat lunch together. We talk about it, our fears around this work. I share my stories because it's important. As long as it's in service to them, it is important that they know too that we're human as therapists. You know, like when you see me in the grocery store, it's not weird. I actually eat, sort of thing. You know, like sometimes that happens. And so, you know, I have fears. I have all these things. And so it's so, so important, just like so important. And I stress this all the time when I talk to groups, is that it's so important to keep doing your work for you and for your clients, because you can't take them where you haven't been. And it's I think it's irresponsible to not do your own work and continue to try and be with others and support them. And one of the things that Constellation also does is it comes from this place of all inclusivity, all included. Everyone has a right to belong, no matter your story, no matter your color, no matter your beliefs, no matter your religion. And so you can feel that in the room. You can feel that. And if someone comes to my workshop and says, you know, in the check-in, we kind of all throw our voices in to say we're in, they may say, I'm just here to observe. And I say, well, welcome. This is perfect. You don't have to come to a workshop or the seminar or the group and do your work. But inevitably, they receive some kind of healing. And it is always my intention that everyone who shows up gets what they need that day. And it's not up to me to decide what they need. The field decides, their family field decides, their personal field decides what they need. So it's so energetically based that it's hard to compare with regular talk therapy. You know, it's going into that conscious space, but it's also being able to look into the eyes of the soul of the person you're working with, not, you know, Ashley or David who's representing somebody, but their actual soul. And it's like the first time it's kind of, it throws you off a little bit. You're like, oh, wait a minute. This is my mom. Like, you can feel the energy. We all know what our relative, you know, what our mom and dad feels like, even if we're not conscious of it, what our siblings, our grandparents, all of it. And so, so the healing happens for everyone. It happens for the representative, it happens for the witness, and it happens for me sometimes as well. No one's immune to the healing in this work. So, yep.
That was wonderful. Holy moly. Like I was gonna, there was a question that Ashley had come up with in the few questions she had about, like, you know, is it therapeutic for everyone, or, you know, does everyone get something like that? And you just answered that. Because I remember my experience when you brought it to me. Oh man, we went deep quick, and I was like, oh, I was not ready for this.
I'm out. I'm
Literally,
out.
like, exposed, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm completely naked in front of my entire graduate cohort. But it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And, like, I mean, just that instance was, I didn't need to go the whole full thing to believe in it. I mean, that little interaction. So when you say everyone that's there, even the witnesser gets something, is absolutely believable. And I'm curious, if you are, I know you were talking about potentially doing an experiential, if there is some time for that, and who would be willing to do that, and you all can discuss consent and what that looks like in this virtual realm. And I will mute myself.
All right. So there's two things we could do. You know, obviously Zoom is challenging, but I have to say, much to my frustration, that it can be done because this is not the form that I like to do this work in, but it can be done, believe it or not. So over those is exactly it. 20 some people
You're freezing a little bit, Mike.
and constellation,
Mikey.
and we constellation. You could pair off.
Are you?
Am I back?
Yep. I don't know if it's mine or if it's yours. It could be mine. Does everybody else
I
hear
don't
her?
know.
Okay,
Okay.
now I'll be quiet. You keep going, Mikey.
Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. So I thought I'd bring, you know, I'd offered two different ways to do it. And usually in person, we would do where we pair up and we stand across from each other, and I just lead you through a little bit of the exercise. The other way we could do it is that if you have a figurine or figurines or something in front of you that could be used, we can all do it that way at the same time. And I could, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, and I think there's 13 here, 14. So I want your input on how you would like to experience this. And what we're going to do is, if we pair off, we're going to reconnect with someone that we want to connect with, that maybe we haven't talked to in a while, maybe that harmed us, maybe not. You know, it could be someone living or someone who's passed on. And it's just a nice little exercise to give you a little bit of taste of what it might seem like. So how would you like to proceed?
You guys, you all can answer this. You all can answer this, because this is an opportunity both to learn experientially and to gain something from it. And you always have the opportunity to say, you know what, this is going too deep for me right now. I'm good. So you can always rescind the consent if you
Yep.
want. So I think it might be a good thing to make sure we have enough time that it's kept whatever. You're the one who knows, Mikey, you're the one who's the professional, knows how much time we need to run through a quick exercise. So why don't you go ahead and make the decision on what format you need with the time you have left, and then whoever else can chime in to say whether they're a willing participant, witness, or not.
That sounds great. So so let's do it this way. Y'all it looked like at home or somewhere. So you can find something in that room or in front of you, nothing that's going to take too long, and that you could use as a figurine. And then if you have another thing available, so you have a figurine for yours, and you have the, and there's no wrong. It could be big, it could be little, there's no wrong. Okay, we're just waiting for a couple people. And normally in a workshop, and sometimes in my clinical setting, I'll do a quick meditation, but we don't have time for that. But I've called in the ancestors for myself, and also anyone who, for the class, and set my intention as I always do. So I want you to just take a breath, okay? And just kind of ground in for a moment, ground into you. And I just want you in the next breath to see who comes up for you to reconnect with. Again, there's no wrong answer. And when you have that person, open your eyes, and then I'll know we can do the next thing. And so, as you have that person, when you then touch the figurine or the object that you have representing that person, you don't have to say it out loud. Nobody has to speak out loud. So when you touch that person and place them, you say their name and who they are in relationship to you. And you're kind of welcoming them in, so to speak. And then you touch your own figurine so that you can just be with that, in that space with that person. Now, at first, just notice what feelings are coming up, anything that comes to mind, any thoughts. It might be, this isn't going to work. That's okay. Skeptics are no problem. So that's all right. So just notice. That's the first step, is just noticing what you feel, what you're thinking, what this might bring to you. Maybe it's fond memories of the person, right? Maybe you've missed the person, they passed on a while ago, whatever it might be. And with the next step, from your perspective of your figurine, you just say, you welcome them. You say, I acknowledge you, and you can say their name. And even something like, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you in this way in a while. And you can continue to just look at the figurine and take a breath. And then move your figurine, if you're ready to, and it feels right, a little bit closer. Now we do this work in small pieces. So you don't want to rush right up to the person because you want that tension to build. Because the place in between where you are and their figurine is all the experiences you've had together. So we move slowly through our timeline with them. And all kinds of different emotions can come up, right? Oh, I was angry that one time. Oh, I'm so joyful. Oh, I love them. All these different things. And so as you move closer, you then take a breath and look and see what comes for you. And you may have your own words to say it to them. I accept you. I honor you. Or some other things. And just notice what's happening in your body and in your heart chakra, your heart space. Notice if you're dropping down from your head now into here. As you say, I acknowledge you. I accept you. I've missed you. Anything that works. And with the next breath, you move your figurine a little bit closer to that person. And so now at this point, depending on how large your desk is, what happens is the Vesica Pisces, so those two energies begin to cross. And that's when we can start to feel the other. And so as you move closer, you can say those same words again and feel how your voice might be changing, whether in your head or out loud. Sometimes it gets a little lower and a little softer. Notice any emotions that are happening for you. Bless you, David. And then as you take a breath, you move even a little bit closer, however close. And you close your eyes and you see that person standing in front of you now in your mind's eye. And you're just breathing and allowing with them. Saying what you would like to say or need to say, or just looking in their eyes. Our eyes communicate so much where we don't even need words. And allow your breath to move the energy. And to feel the presence of that person. And you might, in your mind's eye, see yourself join hands, or take a step closer and hug, or join foreheads, or even a slight bow of gratitude and honor. Any of those things is right. Using your breath to move the energy and to feel the connection. And when you're ready, you start to open your eyes. And you see them now, maybe a little differently than you did before. And noticing that your heart might be a little bit more open today after this. And just notice and take with you into your heart what you're feeling and what you may have heard or seen. And so as the breath goes, I will ring a bell in a moment, and that's usually how I end the constellation for someone. And you can look and you can bow once more again and thank them for coming. And realizing in yourself what you're bringing back with you. And I work. So you can see or feel the sacredness of this and the energy of just this group, how it went deeper, how you all sank, for lack of a better word, but it was a good sink, right? You dropped in from your mental space, which we were talking about so much and which a lot of what school is, down into this space here, your heart space, your soul. And so if anyone has any comments or would like to share, what that was like for them, that would be much welcomed. Or not, it's all good.
I would love to ask. I maybe didn't do exactly what you said. I brought in an ancestor who, through meditation as well as in sessions, has visited me, but I don't know her specifically. And I guess I used this to try to understand why she's here and who she is. It is my great grandmother.
Beautiful.
And I guess in the prompts they were so warm, and they were and in the meditation to connect, and to see her, my experience wasn't one of connection. It was understanding that she feels very threatened by me. And I guess I am curious about that in combination with the prompts and the intention.
And in this, the prompts are difficult. If we were in a group and I was leading your constellation, that would have come up and we would have been able then to go to the next thing. So that, to me, is the gateway into where we need to explore, to go deeper. So this gives a good indication. Oftentimes one constellation shows us that we need other ones, oh, over there, over there, over there. And so that's also what I'm getting, is that there's more to it than just, what you had said. And so that she's, kind of, why are you here, or whatever came up for you. And so then we would go deeper into that, and we would see about her life as well. So I might ask you questions about her life. I might ask you questions about whether it was your paternal or maternal grandmother, about their relationship too. And about, so it gets a lot more involved. So this wouldn't be the end of your constellation per se. But now if we ran out of time during session, I'd be like, okay, so I'd like you to sit and contemplate, and be with this ancestor. And so, and do, you know, I might invite you to do a little research. You might have to ask your mother or your father, like, what was this person like? Because we don't know sometimes. And so yeah, that kind of leads us into the next thing that we could go, and we could go quite deep with it, I feel, because I feel her presence right now, and as a facilitator, that's important for me to do. And so yeah, there is something she wants to say, and then we would go into that more with more depth.
Thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll share something. I felt that using the figurines, I guess like I was able to inhabit like more of an observer role, which was pretty powerful, because I think the person that I spoke to, like I've been so fixated on like my one-to-one relationship, like the way that we relate, and then being able to like see the person like from above and see the totality and like like all around allowed for just more compassion for that person. So it felt like I was able to, like when you were saying like I accept you, I was like, I added you were doing your best, or you are doing your best, and that just like had another layer of, I don't know, impact for me.
Yes, beautiful. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing. Is there anyone else with questions or comments?
I can share.
Mhm.
I felt like the exercise helped me kind of tune into how my relationship with this person really is and not how I want it to be. And then it kind of like in a way, for me, it removed sort of like must have been like a mental evaluation. And I was able to have that, see like the wisdom in the system coming from myself and the other person, whereas I tend to sort of orient towards myself, and I felt like it was more equal. I don't know. I think inviting the person in first and putting my hand on them and then myself sort of oriented me towards how they were being energetically versus just how I feel in relation with them, which was healthy for me, I think.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I'll share, sort of going a little bit off of what others have said, but what triggered it maybe was what David was saying. My experience was simultaneously almost like having a bird's eye view and yet being fully, completely present at the same time. So like really, really energetically present. I don't know how to describe it, like really in the moment, fully in the moment, while simultaneously being really spacious and having these insights about how this person so influenced, like in new ways, influence, like insights in new ways, like new insights in how, I guess, systemically this person helped for me in a positive way, shaped and supported me in ways I didn't even realize. So it was simultaneously like this bird's eye view and yet being fully present. in the experience. So it was very powerful.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly what happens. And that's part of the reason it's so hard to explain to someone, you know, but yes, as above and so below and all of that. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I really wish I had another word besides beautiful, but I find it all just so beautiful. Yes, thank you so much. Oh, it makes my heart smile.
I feel called to share if there's time.
Yeah.
At first I was questioning if I was doing it wrong, just because the person I called in, how to explain, I guess they're a teacher to me that has passed on. So my number of interactions isn't that great, but it's very like a soul connection. And something that's coming up for me is maybe kind of like regret of how I show up in the relationship, like having such reverence for them, but being kind of scared to like ask questions or engage. And it was really beautiful. It's almost like it provided the missed experience because the word that came in was like acceptance. So acceptance that that's how we related and accepting that part of myself. And also that that was just the way that we had to relate at that time, or that just naturally it came up. So that felt really just like healing in general, and just really sweet, kind of just even being in their presence, because they just illuminates like so much light and wisdom and humility. So it felt really like enlivening and powerful for me. Just like it felt like I was in their presence again, and there's really like a sweetness to that. So that was a really beautiful experience.
Absolutely. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Oh, thank you
I'd
so
like to briefly share just like an interesting thing that happened,
much.
which was that I found a memory that I hadn't touched in a long time, and yeah, I was just surprised by finding it. So yeah, this feels interesting and very cool. So thank you.
Yes. Oh, my pleasure, my honor. Thank you. It's beautiful.
I have a question kind of.
Mhm.
Because at first, like I picked somebody who I changed who I picked because it just didn't feel like somebody I wanted to move towards. And so I'm really curious as to like I know this was like a real quickie kind of demo, but I guess maybe that's the answer, but how that could feel really intense, like using somebody that you have a lot of mixed emotions or pain with. Yeah, and like how you process or deal with that kind of resistance or not wanting to move towards, or like maybe even not wanting to heal that relationship.
Yeah, and that's why we go slow. And usually if someone brings it up, and they're super nervous about it, we talk about it a little bit. And I reassure them, I will stand next to them. Like I'm in the constellation as a facilitator, moving it and feeling the energies and things like that. And if you bring something like that, we go slow. We move very slow. And we move slow enough, and I stand there, and I'm also an energy practitioner, so there's ways to help calm, and not with no one's like I get permission. But you know, it that's why it is a slow place. I had a person I would work with, whose mother was severely traumatized her. And she came in one day and she said, I want to work with my mom. And I said, okay. And she kind of looked at me and had these, and I said, okay, let's just take a breath. We're take a breath and we're going to go slow. And if you decide after we set it up that that's as far as you want to go, then that's as far as we go, because she will glean something. She will, even if it's just the courage to just stand there for a moment, that is okay. And again, there is no judgment to say, oh, well, you should have taken 4 steps and then it would have been fine. No, that's not how it works. The fact that you're even saying or having the intention of standing across from that person. Now it's different when you're alone in your apartment or whatever, and you're trying to do this work. It's easy to stop it. And I need someone to hold the space for me, because I will just go, yeah, no, not today. And I'm lucky I have quite a few friends who I went to the training with that will help me out in a moment's notice. But it is, you're right. Part of it is that it's a short demo. And much like when Marie was talking, you know, it's something then we would stay and we would breathe and we would see what comes up and just stand just for a moment. So, and you wouldn't be alone in that moment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually really inspired to share my experience based off of your question, Ellie, because the person who came to my mind was someone who is like, there's just like lots of things going on. And it was really it was a super challenging experience. And even I had to like go to like the other side of my room. Like I physically like got up and left. But what was really profound in that space was that like I know that there are emotions that I haven't been able to touch yet just through like my own personal processing, but even just like doing this experience I was able to actually like touch into the emotions that were there that I couldn't touch yet, just in like setting up the system. So it was like flushing up, okay, so like what are the emotions or the things that still need to be felt in me first before I can still like move closer, or like as like Sarah and David talked about, like step into that like more observer space. So yeah, I thought that was perfect.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just enjoying the energy of the group. Yeah.
So I have a question, because this is, you know, we're all in training here, right? This thing called life, and we're gonna help other folks get a little further along in their navigational route. And so my thought is thinking of people, so in, you know, in transpersonal world and the world of suggestibility, people who are more inclined to seek out or take up the opportunity when a modality, treatment modality like this comes, if that's what we're calling it, you know, if this comes across their path. What about those who are what you would call more resistant to, or unsure of, or not the ideal candidate, but you know that they would really benefit from this? And I know that you had said, you know, taking time, but what would be like the prompting and preparing and intake and all that? What would that look like?
Yeah, great question. So normally, you know, that nice big questionnaire gives me a lot of information. And also I honor the great part of this modality too is that we honor the resistance. It's there for a reason. And so we honor it. And I will literally say, I honor your resistance in this moment. And you know, if it's in a group, I would say, and it's okay, you don't have to go any farther. And a lot of the time, more often than not, they will take a breath and they'll wait, and then they'll take another step. But it's so important. The other thing too is that if they don't, you know, I generally explain, because it's often asked, because they go to my website, they're like, what the heck is this? So normally we explain it to every new client that comes, and they're like, oh, that's really interesting. But what's pretty amazing is that if they're resistant to the process itself, right, the setting up the figurines, the showing up at a group, whatever it is, the modality is such a big part of me that inevitably their session turns out to be a constellation without the constellation being set up. So we look at, and I'll get information about, so tell me a little bit about your relationship, or tell me a little bit about, so it doesn't have to, you know, okay, we're going to set up the figurines and blah, blah, blah. You know, I worked with a guy, he was like 6'5", he wore flannel, he's an outdoor work, like he just, and so every day, every time he would come in, you know, I had them set up somewhere else, and he'd look at them and he calls them the little people, and he would joke about it. And I would just be like, okay, it's all right. You don't have to, that's good. Until, but in his sessions, we would talk about his father. We would talk about, you know, if you could say something, what would you say? I could ask them the questions, you know, as therapists, we often know the answers, and it's not up to us to give it to them. It's up to us to ask the questions that may help them down a path. And so constellation is very similar. When I do a constellation or sit with a client, I do not have any preconceived notions or judgment about how the session's going to go and what I should exactly do with them, because they bring what they bring. They are an expert in their life that I could not even touch. And so me holding that space and allowing them to have that space for themselves is super important. And so I work constellations in because it has such a foundational thing that, you know, it's, I would probably bleed it at this point. So like any modality, it informs me. It informs me of the questions to ask. It informs me of where should we go next? Are they ready? And there's ways to see. Plus myself, I mean, I've worked very hard and got training through this modality and others to read energy, to feel the energy, to feel sometimes what they can't say, and to offer it as an invitation, as a perhaps, or as an, I invite you to explore that a little further. You don't have to, but I think it's important. And so there's a gentleness that you can be with your clients, and they will respond, because even if they hadn't ever, even if they're avoidant or disorganized or anxious, they will respond because you are listening and you are hearing them. And most clients, that's one of the biggest things they need, is to be heard. So.
Thank you for tying in those attachment things. We were talking about that earlier, and one of the questions that had come up was, is there hope? You know, and is there, you know, when an attachment has been, you know, essentially formed, is there a possibility that it can be changed or altered or whatever, you know, or grow into something more, evolve into something more? And that's like such a key piece right there. Acceptance for that and space for that, for them to be, you know, their attachment style, their personality style, spirit in human form and to be curious. And I think this is just such a wonderful modality. Aside from breath work, the stuff that
Oh, agree. Yeah.
where we do both of them.
Yes. Oh, that'd be amazing.
Change the world. Whoever that was that asked earlier, is there hope for the world? Yes. Let's just get a bunch of these.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, yes, acceptance for and appreciation for where people are and meeting them where they're at. And I think, it'd be great if you could share in the chat, like contact, whatever you want to share to get in touch with you, maybe an email, or if you want to I already put your website on the canvas, but if you want to put that in there too.
Okay.
So that way, if any of them are interested, I know you said there's a conference coming up here in Colorado Springs and you're directing it, right?
Yeah, I'm a co-director, and I've been involved with it for the last 4 conferences, either presenting or volunteering or co-directing it now. Yes, it's November 14th through the 18th and at the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs.
Not far from me.
Yeah.
It's a fancy place.
It is, but we got a really good deal.
Okay. Oh, it's pandemic. Fire sale.
Right.
On the conference.
Right. Yeah. And
one other piece I think that was so important that you highlighted in this is just the trusting of yourself, and your skill set, and also the fact that these sort of transpersonal approaches can be married with others.
Yes.
And that, it's good to have, I think I was saying earlier, a jack of all trades, but also have your specialty because you can integrate, and it's not all about one size fits all. It's about what you need in that moment to like how we breathe into that space to move the energy. These modalities, these approaches are helping that process, to move through, the stuckness of I don't want to move close to that person. No, they harmed me. And in real life, that's a very good boundary, but that unconsciously could be working against you and creating a script that's preventing you in other scenarios and situations that aren't exactly the same. So I don't know. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mikey, Dr. Ruhl, for coming today. And I don't know if there's any other questions that we have or you all have briefly, because we have just a few moments here and want to respect everyone's time. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I'm charged up and ready to go for the day now. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, but please feel free. There's on my website too, there's some books and references. One book that I think too, I found really interesting. There's a book by Franz Rupert, and he's been in the constellation community for a really long time. And it's called Trauma Bonding in Family Constellations. So I'll put it in here. You can find it probably on Amazon, not a problem. Let me make sure I spell his name right. There. And it's a really good book. I read so many books for interest and then for my huge lit review. So so there's a lot there. If you want to find some other books that might be interesting, you can look at the lit review as well. Oh, I know why. Because it's not .com, it's .org. My bad. Sorry about that. There we go. That should work now. Oops. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, in Naropa fashion, we have a thing where we begin our classes and inner classes with a brief exercise. I think you all have gone through and traversed a non-ordinary state already, so I won't leave you launching off into a further space of that. Just, you know, give yourself a moment to just give your stretches and send an appreciation to yourself for showing up today. Thank you for this opportunity to share this space with you all. It is an honor. I learn every time that I'm in this space. It's not just me sharing my little nuggets of knowledge, but I appreciate you, and I'll stay on here for a little bit if there's any questions that you have. If not, again, thank you and have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Hi, everyone.
That went well. It was like grunt. Much more smooth.
All right.
I just wanted to really specifically thank you, Dr. Mikey, for sharing that incredible experience and for this introduction. I'm really interested in learning more.
Oh, good. You're so welcome. I'm so glad to hear. It was great to meet with you and be in your space, be in the space. I love how you ended class. It's how I end my workshops too. It's so great. Oh, thank you so much. I hope our paths cross again.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Be in touch.
Absolutely. Bye, Angela.
Bye, Mikey. Bye, Marie.
Bye. And I wanted to say thank you to you too, Angela.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just grateful Mikey had time to come in because this is so needed, you know, to be able to tie in whatever the transpersonal is. And like, to be honest, like this is like big stuff here. It takes how many years of training for this, Mikey? How long does it take?
3 years.
And, you know, although it's, you know, you're like thinking like in human terms, like, oh, do I have 3 years? We were just locked down for a year. But it's if there is a goal to really change your world and the world around you, this is the type of work. This is the type of work that gets at the fabric of all those things that we're operating on. You know, that we have intergenerationally, you know, like where did that come from? This little figurine. I'm a mushroom.
Wow, that's awesome.
This was my deceased mother. I did not intend to pick her, but she came up and I was like, okay, appropriate.
Yeah.
So, wanted to share that.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. So.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Dr. Mikey, do you mind if I ask just a couple questions?
Sure. I have some time. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering, does the training have to be done in person?
So interesting. No, not necessarily. So the training specific with the people I've trained with, they are moving to, well, we did online this past year, and we have one more weekend left, but they're moving to back in person because they're located outside of Boston, so they're allowed now to, with things opening up. And they've decided to do 2 intensives, so 2 5-day intensive that count as 1 year. But also included is that if you are a first, you know, this is your first time going into it, they have also honored us, the people who have studied and graduated from them, to welcome any of their new students that for 10, so I have an all-day seminar or workshop, so allowing them those, so if you come to a workshop or whatever and you do it 10 times, and you could do it with my dear friend Martina, they do it online. So as long as they're a graduate from TCA or the Constellation approach, 10 times means that you only have to go then study with them for 2 years there.
Okay.
So their intensives are scheduled out till 2025 already. And the first one's in October, and then the following one's in April.
Okay.
And then I have mine throughout the year, and I'm still on the fence about doing them over Zoom because it's a lot more tiring. I'm sure you can attest teaching all day. So it takes a lot more energy, but I know how to do it, you know, and it's very, very effective, very. So yeah, so there's that part. And I think I put in their website is Faust Family Constellations. And so FAUST. And so you can read all about their program. And then they also have a list of graduates that you can look up if someone lives closer to you or something like that.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out if there are any in Hawaii. That's where I live. And I feel like it would be really, really supportive to this culture here.
Yes, interesting because Jamie and Peter Faust, Jamie lived in Hawaii for many, many years. She studied with one of her shamans is from Hawaii. And so she goes every year back around her birthday to pay homage and honor to Pele and to her teacher and everything else. So I can for sure ask her if she knows anyone there that leads workshops and things.
Okay, I'll write you an email, and I would love to learn more.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. I
You
look
too.